Hello and welcome to this Uncharted Waters tier list of mates. Hopefully this will be useful, informational, and fun. So, we have the tier list all ready to go. We're going to be starting with the most experienced to least experienced mates. And just to go over the criteria real quick, I'll be rating them by how good they are, how easily or early in the game you can get them, are they worth going out the way for, they struggle to sail the ships I want to have when they're available. And to recruit them, your main character must have basically what it says on the screen. You have to be equal in level and exceeding their top stat with the same stat for you. Or you have to be ahead of their level and have 10 points per stat. This has only been tested on the console versions. I do believe the PC version is different. So, our first mate is Diaz. Sailing battle levels 28, roams all over the map. You can see his starting stats. They do not change in any of these ratings. He starts out as the overall best mate at the beginning of the game, but as others level up, their stats encroach upon his. And to start off with Diaz, we are putting him into the never use category because, as the last thing we went over there in the preamble, he is extraordinarily difficult to recruit. He is virtually, you have to basically set your mind to recruiting him to get him, because his levels are so high. So he's not worth putting any real effort into unless that's the only thing that you're aiming for. Next up is Alfonso. See there, he's sailing battle level 10. Very good stats. Starts out as the 6th best mate, drifts downward a bit as people level up. And Alfonso is going into our weak option category. This is not a guy that you generally are going to want to put any effort into getting him. You might be able to recruit him late mid-game, or in the late game when you do get a combined 20 levels, but you usually will have better options at this point. So he's too hard to get, and we're gonna say hard pass on Alfonso. Next up is Americus, sailing battle level 7. Like our previous mates, tends to roam all over the place. His stats are pretty awful at the beginning of the game. He's the 11th out of 20, and just gets worse as time goes on, because again, other mates will gain levels and will catch up. So Americus goes into the weak option category. I will be rating them inside, and he might be our worst of the weak options. Next up, Christopher, sailing level 6, battle level 8. You can find him in Antwerp at the beginning of the game, but he seems to be in America most of the time. He has very good stats. He starts out at the 3rd best and stays up there at the top the entire time. So this is supposed to be Christopher Columbus, by the way, as Americus is probably Amerigo Vespucci. Christopher, for me, goes into the solid choice category, but good luck finding him. 14 combined battle levels is pretty difficult to get. And by the time you get him, especially with sailing level 6 being a slight bit of a liability, unless you got some more sailing to go, he's probably not gonna do it. But if you do happen to get him, he's usually worth throwing into the party. Next up, Fernando, sailing level 5, battle level 6. I've seen him in Europe. I've seen him in Southeast Asia. He's also a roamer, hard to find. Look at his stat line, is great. He starts out 2nd in the game and stays up there, 3rd place through most of the game. Getting Fernando, however, is a bit of a chore, so he's not somebody that's easy to plan around, but I would put him directly here as a solid choice. If you can find him, he's almost always worth throwing in the party, unless you're just done sailing and you can't get his levels up to maybe make those galleons go a little bit faster. So next up is Regis, sailing level 4, or sailing level 7, battle level 4. He bounces around Europe a lot. I've seen him in Venice, Genoa, Marseille, Lisbon. I think he tends to be in the bigger cities. He starts off, you know, average, and he kind of doesn't keep pace. Part of this is because his sailing level is already 7, which is kind of a point where it's hard to gain a whole bunch of levels. So we put Regis into the weak option category. He's usually just not worth getting, messing around, putting any time into. Next up, Vicente, sailing level 6, battle level 5. You'll find him in Europe. He likes to be in Seville and London, especially after a little while. Starts off awful. He's the 15th best mate, and he falls down to 17th and even 19th, which means he is the second to last on the scale here. Just one of the worst, and we are putting him into the weak option group there in last place in that group. He is just not worth getting. So we've really kind of started in the bottom of the list here, but I think we're gonna trend a little bit back and forth now. Benedetto, next up, sailing level 4, battle level 5. He roams around. I think I've seen him outside of Europe before, but he's usually around Europe somewhere. He is starting level 7. He actually gets a little bit better as time goes on because unlike some other other characters, his stats don't max out super easily. So he's almost always gaining points as he goes up. However, he does have one slight negative here, and that is his intelligence stat, even though intelligence is generally easy to raise. There is something about sailing where the lowest of your sailing stats seems to hurt you, which makes him a little less useful than he might be. But if you find him before doing a big India sail or somewhere where you can crank out a lot of sailing levels, he may be useful for you. Next up is Aljuna. He is in Calicut, which is not an easy place to get to. Sailing level 1, battle level 5, but has one of the best starting stat overall. Just a very good spread. 72 as his lowest stat, and it's a battle stat. And he grows very fast. So for Aljuna, again, you see him as the second highest overall stat line. Aljuna goes directly into our the best category. Now there's a couple of things about this that I would warrant. One is you're not always gonna go to India. It's possible to beat the game without going there, and it's not common, but you might find yourself just not getting him, so planning on a speed run specifically for him could be bad. But if you do recruit him, again, he is just a very high tier quality all across the board, and definitely worth the effort. That sailing level can be just ratcheted up really fast over there if you manage to recruit him before you find too many more of the Southeast Asia or East Asian ports. Next up is Conrad. Conrad is sailing level 3, battle level 2. He starts in, I think he's always in Genoa. He is the best overall fighter at the start of the game, and will almost certainly max out his courage and strength if you do a lot of battles. The one hesitation, though, is he is not very good at sailing. So Conrad can be a very strong option if you are, if you can get him and put some sailing levels into him ASAP. He can be just an absolutely amazing option. With galleons and down, I would not put him into a heavy galleon. So if you're thinking about going that way, I wouldn't. But he is a solid choice. Next, we have Siren, who is kind of the flip of Conrad, sailing level 2, battle level 3. He's a little hard to find. I've seen him in multiple African ports and in Arabia. His starting stats are a little bit better on the sailing stats, the blue ones, than Conrad, and quite a bit lower in the battle stats, the purple ones. But those stats will continue to go up, and even though he starts, it's about the 11th overall, he will generally keep going up over time, and is one of the best battle mates in the game. There are not many good battle mates that you can get, except later in the game. So I put him into the situationally useful category. If you can find him, he can be a bit of a pain, and it's a little hard to go after him specifically. Next up is Amul, Sailing level 1, Battle level 2. He is always in Hormuz, apparently. I didn't know that until recently, but I've always found him there since I learned this. He starts out 14th overall. His stats are pretty mediocre, but he doesn't have terribly low sailing stats. They're not great, but they will go up fairly quickly. If you want to grab him and put some levels into him, he'll be pretty viable by the end game. And something I sort of mentioned before, and this is going to become a bigger deal, there is something about sailing stats where your lowest sailing stat acts a bit like an anchor. And for Amul, it's that bad because he's pretty average. So we put him into the situational and useful category as well. You might be interested in picking up somebody like him, but it will probably not be a major factor in the run. And you can miss him pretty easily. So, next up is Ronaldo. Ronaldo is the worst character in the game by a mile. No one's even close. His combined stats at the start of the game and throughout are over 100 points less than the next person. It is strange how dirty they did Ronaldo. But if you want a challenge, if you want to have some fun, and fun I put in quotation marks, go to Mombasa, get Ronaldo, put him in a caravel, and wait until he gets to sailing level like 30 or something, to where he will actually be able to sail a half-decent ship. And he does have some battle stats. He's not terrible in battle, but he's still like almost the worst. So unfortunately for Ronaldo, as you can imagine, he goes into the never used category. If you want to, you should consider whatever you're doing just kind of as a meme. I like to get Ronaldo and throw him in as my first mate, the guy who will do all of the messaging to us. So everyone we have left after this point starts out at sailing and battle level 1, so they are technically recruitable right at the start of the game if you can match their stats. Although most of them you'll end up with at least one sailing level before you find them. And we'll start with Francisco. He is in Alexandria, which is a bit unfortunate because a lot of times Portugal and Turkey are at war at the beginning of the game and you can't get in without bribing. His stat line compared to some of the other 1-1 mates is not overwhelming, but he has the advantage of having a fairly high basement for his sailing stats. So he ends up growing pretty well as a result of that. Really high charisma, and I rate him as the second best of the intelligence-based mates. Maybe the third best of them overall. Third or fourth. But I put him into the situational and useful category. If you're going to go with a full set of heavy galleons, he might actually work out, because even though he has the worst battle stats in the game, you don't really need a lot of battle stats if you're packing 100 cannons and heavy galleons. Next up is Jose. Jose is tricky because he will not sit still. He starts the game in Seville, so if you can sail to Seville on before the first month ends, with 95 intelligence, you can recruit him, but he will bounce around a lot. You'll see him sometimes in Lisbon. In fact, frequently he pops over in Lisbon after a month or two. He'll be in Genoa sometimes. I've seen him also in Southeast Asia. He might have the same rotation that Fernando has. At least I've been told that some of the mates have the exact same circles, but his stats are pretty good at the beginning, except sailing stats are good, except charisma is bad. And that does haunt him a little bit and will slow him down. Jose is not really worth keeping in your party long term, but we throw him into the situationally useful category because you can get him early in the game and possibly pick an extra ship up to throw him on there until you decide to sail down into the Mediterranean and get the better aids that are down there. On that note, Marco here starts out as the 16th best mate. He's not very good at the beginning, But he does grow pretty well because his stats are fairly average. And that means he's not hitting any ceilings, he's not getting any wasted levels, already having an 100 stat. Marco's usefulness is that you get him right at the beginning of the game, and he will stay in your party for a long time usually. You don't always keep him all the way around, but he does serve a tremendous amount of usefulness, and just that you can get him the first day of the game if you have 79 courage. And that lets you get a second ship before you even leave the first town. So we put Marco right up here as a solid choice to have. Next up is Miguel. Miguel is interesting. He's in Algiers, only in Algiers, and he's the second best battle pirate or battle mate at the beginning of the game, just behind Conrad. He is technically coded as a pirate, but the country tags don't seem to mean a whole lot. His low stats in wisdom and intelligence mean he's a little rough sailing at the beginning, but if you pump some levels into him, he is perfectly fine. In fact, he ends up as the highest overall stat line of any character in the game. At this point, if you go to extreme levels and get a bunch of battle, Aljuna will actually pass him. But one of the biggest and best things about Miguel is that Algiers is a port you can visit immediately. It is nearby, there's no problem getting to it, and that puts Miguel right at the top of our list. The best mate to get. There's almost no time where you will not want to recruit him and use him the entire game. Just be sure to give him money, because his loyalty will never go up naturally because his stats are so high. At least that's what I assume it is. His stats are so high that he almost sees you as an inferior. Which, honestly, Miguel and Aljuna are the only two people whose stats should rival yours. Maybe Fernando. Anyway, we're moving on to Nicholas. Nicholas you can get in Antwerp. For me, he's often the second mate I get in the game. He has a very high intelligence stat, his wisdom's alright, but his charisma is awful, his battle stats are awful. Because of the way his stats build, he tends to max out 2 of the sailing stats, but if it is true that the low sailing stat matters a lot when it comes to disasters and such, then his charisma is actually a big problem. We have him ranked 18th overall, and for me, Nicholas goes into the situational useful category. In that I will recruit him to get a ship early before I go into the Mediterranean, and then I will replace him almost certainly. And a lot of times I will fire him because I get tired of looking at his portrait. Not that there's anything wrong with it, it's just, you get tired of looking at people all the time. So, we have 2 mates left. First, Oswaldo. Oswaldo is actually pretty terrible. He starts in Venice. Venice is a terrible port to try to sail to, especially on the NES version. It's just so many extra screens of sailing up the backside of Italy. His stat line is pretty awful. 65 is the highest stat. Yeah, he starts out 19th. He does go ahead of some people like Jose and Nicholas, and I think he'll even pass Americus after a while. People whose stat lines can max out where his will not for a long time, but he is not worth using in any sort of, serious run. However, I like to put him right about here. He is sometimes fun to do if you want to play as the worst possible mate combination. Oswaldo probably fits into that dynamic. In fact, I would say if you were going to do that, you'd probably want Ronaldo, Oswaldo, Nicholas, and then Vicente, if you could get him fairly easily. If not, Regis or Jose. They're all fine. They're all pretty bad, and they don't generally ever get there. So. Last one up is Roberto. Location is Marseille. He's the only character who starts with a 100 in a stat, so his growth gets a little bit nerfed, and that one of his stats is capped right at the onset, and then a second one gets capped. But he starts with 76 charisma, and his battle stats are better than many of the other more like nerd style sailors. The ones who are more oriented towards sailing than battle at the beginning of the game. And his charisma will come pretty close to getting maxed out. You could see him, you know, depending on the RNG, actually max out all of his sailing stats. His battle stats are not great, but compared to a lot of other ones, he actually can do pretty well in battle as a result of that. And so we throw Roberto right up here into the solid choice category. So now this is the tier list. This is what I think. So you might look at this and be like, well, okay, what are we doing now? Because you can get 4 mates, and I only put 2 of them into the best. So there's a couple of different ways you can kind of focus on the game, but the way I would look at it is, do I want to use galleons, or maybe even something less? Do I want to not go to heavy galleons or not? If you go to heavy galleons, then a character like Conrad here is a liability because his sailing stats just don't get good enough. Also, I would put Marco kind of in that same category. Marco has trouble sailing that big of a ship. Whereas somebody like Roberto and even Francisco can do really well with that. Or you could throw Fernando or Christopher in there and it would be fine. If you're going for pure battle though, like, you know, lower ships like galleons, I would say Miguel Aljuna, Conrad, and at that point you can kind of pick, but probably Marco. Again, if you happen to come across Fernando or Christopher in a place where you can still get them some sailing levels and you haven't, you know, fought a lot of battles yet, I would switch to them because they're both just really, really good. It's hard to find Christopher. It's slightly easier, but still kind of annoying to find Fernando. And if you end the game with Marco, it's not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, that's it. That is it for the tier list. I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, maybe we'll do some more of these. Hopefully it was educational, informational, and not just me talking about who I like more than others, like a lot of these lists provide. So let me know in the comments if you want to see me do more of these specific to Uncharted Waters or any other game, because I can definitely do that. So till next time, take care.